If you love beef stroganoff, but you do not love mushrooms, this video is for you. All right, so we've got a screaming hot pan. We've got ground beef. You hear that? Screaming hot. So once your ground beef hits the pan, let it sit for a little bit. Let it sit for a minute, break it up, make sure that, you've got all the real estate covered here, but then let it sit so it starts getting really brown and you get a little bit of a crispy edge on some of those pieces of meat. What you're going to be doing then is adding in the onion and a little bit of garlic powder, and you're going to cook all this off together until it's fully cooked. Now in here, I have about 1.5 pounds of ground beef. We're not doing mushrooms. I don't like mushrooms. If you decide that you want to add mushrooms to this recipe, well, we can still be friends, okay? We'll still be friends. But if you are going to do that, go ahead and lower the amount of ground beef you're using. I'm using 1.5 pounds to offset the fact that I'm not adding in mushrooms. Mushrooms take up real estate, right? So if you take the mushrooms out and you're using the same amount of ground beef, you're going to kind of have like a weak sauce there. You know what I mean? You need a little bit more oomph to it. So that's why I added 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Again, if you're using mushrooms, cut your ground beef down to about 1 pound. You'll be good to go. If you are adding mushrooms, again, we're still going to be friends, but if you are adding mushrooms, add your mushrooms when you add the onions, which we're going to do in about a second here. And then, 8 ounces sliced mushrooms, cook them all together. You're good to go. Another thing about the ground beef, keep stirring. Another thing about the ground beef, okay, right now the entire universe is expensive, like painfully expensive. Ground beef, 1 pound of ground beef at Walmart is like $8 at Walmart. That's insane. So if you don't want to use ground beef or you don't have it accessible, like, don't worry about that, all right? Swap out for ground turkey. That's a little less expensive. Go all the way down to ground chicken. And when I say go down, I mean as far as the price goes, because ground chicken's like $3.99 a pound. Ground chicken's amazing. I use ground chicken in pretty much everything. So don't worry if you can't do the ground beef or you don't want to do the ground beef. You want to swap out for something else, perfectly fine. As this cooks, after you add the onions bring an amazing amount of liquid to the party, okay? That's totally fine. Don't stress out. That's why you want to try to brown some of that meat down as much as possible before you add the onions. It doesn't have to happen all the time. You got people screaming in the background, they're starving. Don't worry about whether or not you've got the proper color on your ground beef so that, you have brown bits. Don't stress about that. If you got the time to do it, excellent. If not, don't worry about it. But the onions are going to bring a lot of liquid to it. So all of that with the grease, it's all flavor. We're going to drain off the grease when this is fully cooked. We're going to start adding everything else into the party. It's going to be awesome. And you're going to see exactly how fast this meal comes together. Now, while you are browning your ground beef and you're getting all of this started, now is a good time to go ahead and get a large pot of salted water. Get that on your stove. Get your water going. Get that boiling. We're going to be cooking off the noodles while you're making this. And that is why everything comes together in under 30 minutes and it hits your table. And everyone who's screaming about how starving they are at 5:30 on a Tuesday night, they can be quiet. And they're going to be quiet because they're going to have food in their mouths. And you're going to be happy because it's quiet. So go ahead and get your water on. Get that boiling. I'm going to finish browning off all the meat. We're going to drain off the grease and we're going to get going on the next part of this recipe. And because we are so awesome, let's get our hot pan going again. Because we're very high tech here. Absolutely. All right. So we've gone ahead and drained the ground beef and the onion. It's sitting off to the side. We'll add that back in a bit. What we're going to do right now is using the same pan. We're going to make kind of like a little roux action going on, and then we're going to make the sauce. And then we're going to add that back later at the end. Like I just said, though, be sure you start, boiling off your water. You're going to want to get your noodles going on. That way you don't have like this amazing sauce all done and ready to go, and you're still going to have to wait 15 minutes for the pasta to cook. So multitasking. That's what we're doing. We're multitasking. So what I have here is 3 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to add that into our already hot pan. Okay, so you've got your butter melted. We're going to add in, we got 3 tablespoons of butter. We got 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Go ahead and get that into the party. And you are going to whisk that together. Apparently very loudly. You're going to whisk that together. Do not walk away. Do not walk away and go answer your phone. Don't let your dogs out. Don't walk away and be like, it'll be fine. No, we continue to whisk, okay? Whisk it all together. And you're going to cook this down for about a minute or two, and that way it kind of cooks all the flour taste out. The longer you cook it, the darker this is going to get, and that's okay too. But yeah, you definitely want to do this for about a minute or two, and then we're going to add in our beef broth. Now, as this cooks, you're going to keep this on, I usually do mine like between medium and medium-high heat, depending how your stovetop is or your super swanky hot plate in my case. As this cooks, you're going to want to continually whisk, okay? We don't want any of that flour sticking to the bottom, and believe me, it will. But as this cooks, it's going to start thickening up, okay? So when you notice that it is now a very lovely thick consistency to where if you took the back of a spoon and dragged it through, it's going to coat the back of the spoon. It's going to leave a little trail in the in your roux here. Then you know that's where you want it to be, okay?
See how it's coating the back of the spoon? That right there is exactly the consistency you're looking for.
There are 100 different ways to make beef stroganoff. There are slow cooker ways. There's beef stroganoff with like the best cuts of meat. There's, you know, less sour cream, more sour cream, roux, no roux, blah, blah, blah. The reason why I love this recipe is we're going to end up with a very rich, creamy beef stroganoff in under 30 minutes, okay? We're using one pan and one pot to boil the pasta off, and that's pretty much it, okay? And what we're going to also do is we're going to use a lot of shortcuts, and those shortcuts are going to make it taste like we worked a heck of a lot harder than we actually are, okay? Because when it's 5:30 on a Tuesday night and everyone's starving to death, air quotes, starving to death, okay, you're not worried about, oh, is this the proper traditional beef stroganoff? No, you want something inexpensive, easy, delicious, and something that you can get on your table and feed your family without the headache of having to spend all night in the kitchen. That's why I love this. Plus, it's so freaking good. And there's no mushrooms. There's that too. All right. So what is the secret to this? This little jar. This is a jar of store-bought beef gravy. If you have a particular brand that you like best, use that. If you don't, I highly recommend this one. I've used the brown gravy. Wasn't really that much of a fan of that one. The chicken gravy is good. The beef gravy is amazing. So what we're going to do is we are going to add the beef gravy to our mix here, okay? And then we're just going to go ahead and keep moving on with the recipe because honestly, this is the secret weapon right here. You can make stroganoff, you know, without this. You absolutely can. I've done it before. I have a recipe for it on my website to do it. But this gives it such a crazy amount of flavor, and it's going to taste like it's been simmering all day and that you've been slaving away in the kitchen, and you have not even a little bit. So this is, where am I at with this? 18 ounces. They only had the big one. So you need about 10 ounces of gravy. I'm going to use just probably a titch over half of this. We're going to add that right in.
Go ahead and add all of your gravy, your Worcestershire sauce, your garlic powder, and your onion powder to this. Mix it all together so that it's all perfectly incorporated, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part. Look at all that bubbling.
All right, now this is where the secret of really great stroganoff, I think, comes into play. Pepper, okay? I am not a pepper person. I'm not a pepper person at all. You're a pepper, I'm a pepper, I'm not a pepper person, okay? And if you remember that reference, then I just totally dated myself. But anyway, I am a salt person. I will always grab the salt. I never grab pepper. But when it comes to stroganoff, you need it. You just really, really do. It's what honestly just brings it all together and makes it stroganoff. It really does.
So add 2 teaspoons of black pepper to your sauce. Go ahead and stir that in and make sure it's all well incorporated.
All right, so what you are rewarded with after all of that is a very dark, beautiful sauce, okay? It is glossy, it is dark brown, it is absolutely smelling ridiculously good in here right now. So we've taken it off of the hot plate, okay? We're gonna take it off of the heat. Don't ever add your sour cream to your dish where you've got it on the stove, it's boiling, it's all the things, because what's gonna happen is your sour cream is gonna break and you're gonna end up with a broken, grainy sauce, and you're gonna be sad. You're gonna be very, very sad because this smells amazing and you'll be smelling this entire thing as you cook it. And if you break your sauce, you will cry. I understand that. I've done that. That's why I'm telling you, take it off the heat. We are going to now add that we've had this off the heat and it's not boiling and getting all angry. We're going to add our sour cream. I've got here about 1 cup of sour cream. We're going to add that right in, and then we're going to mix it so that it just goes in smooth and beautiful and your sauce doesn't break, okay?
Add your sour cream into your brown sauce and go ahead and stir it in completely. You're going to see that it's going to transform this into a gorgeous, creamy sauce for your stroganoff.
What I add next is going to seem like really kind of crazy, and somebody inevitably is going to leave me a comment like, what were you thinking? But I promise it works. It really honestly does. What we're going to add next is Parmesan cheese. Don't leave me. Stay here. Stay here. Trust me. Just trust me on this one, okay? Parmesan cheese is going to give this sauce and give this dish a little bit of a bite, okay? It has so much heaviness in this dish. It's got a very thick gravy. You've got cream. You've got the sour cream. You've got, you know what I mean? Like it's very thick, all right? The sauce isn't going anywhere, okay? It's thick. So because it's so heavy, you need something to kind of give it a little bit of a contrast. Not enough to where you're like, wow, this tastes really bizarre and weird. Enough to where you don't realize that you're even tasting something unusual in a dish that maybe it doesn't necessarily traditionally go into, but that it makes everything amazingly delicious. Trust me on this, please. Trust the process. Okay, so we're going to add about 1/3 of a cup of Parmesan cheese. Just use some grated Parmesan cheese and you will not be disappointed, I promise, okay? So you're going to sprinkle that in, all right? Stir that all in. And this is also going to give you a thicker sauce, all right? So again, if you're starting to feel uncomfortable with how thick this is, wait until the very end, because once you add the pasta and you see exactly how beautiful this coats the pasta, you will not be disappointed. Now, if you really do feel like you want, you know, if you're somebody who does like a sauce with a much thinner consistency, add a little bit of beef broth. You're fine with that. But I promise this is just a beautiful thick sauce that's going to coat your pasta like a hug. I promise. We've got our ground beef. Go ahead and add the ground beef back in. Okay. All the goodness with that.
Mix all of your ground beef into your sauce. Make sure everything is well incorporated and then drain off your pasta. We're going to bring that over to the table and add that into the mix.
Add all that pasta into your sauce. And yes, I do use tongs. I do use the barbecue tongs for pasta because honestly, has anybody ever in the history of time been able to navigate that pasta claw with the teeth, the plastic one that you're supposed to scoop? I can't use that. I just can't. I get irritated. I always use the kitchen tongs, the barbecue tongs. Yes, I have to do that. It works so much better with pasta. If you are cooking pasta, you can just get right in there and swirl it all around, especially spaghetti. My spaghetti never sticks because I use these, you know, just little side note. Sorry. Anyway, stir all of this together, okay? What we're going to do now is we are going to finish this off with one more little thing that you're probably going to be like, what are you doing? All right. This is a very thick, a very heavy, a very comfort food, stick to your ribs dish. No doubt about it. It's amazing. You're going to be happy. Your family's going to love it. But the thing that is missing is a little bit of acid. Okay. We need just a little something to cut through all of the thickness and to cut through all of the heaviness. All right. Now, the Parmesan is doing its part with adding a little bit of a bite on the background of the flavor. But again, it also thickens up the sauce a little bit. What we want to do is add just a little bit of rice wine vinegar. Now, if you have just regular white vinegar, you can use that little bit, just a tiny little bit, like a little half a teaspoon, and start there. You're not trying to taste the vinegar. You don't want to taste anything to where you're like, oh, she put vinegar in this. Excellent choice. No, you want it just to have a little bit of a bump, 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 bump on the ends of it. So therefore you are not just overwhelmed with how thick the gravy is and just, you know what I mean? It's just a very heavy dish. So add just a tiny little bit of vinegar. If you have rice wine vinegar, great. If you have, what else do I have in there? White wine vinegar, that would probably work. What else do I have? Red wine vinegar, maybe that might work. White vinegar, like I said, if you're going to use it, you can dilute it. All right. Like maybe like 1 teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of water. You just really want just a little bit of extra, just a little zing in there. Not enough to where you're going to notice the zing, but just that you would notice it if the zing wasn't there. It's really the best way I can explain that. So I have a tiny little, we're just going to add just a little bit, just a tiny little bit, like a teaspoon, just a little bit of All right, just enough to where just a little something in there. Like I said, trust me, trust the process on this one. What you're going to want to do at this point is taste it, okay? You want to taste to see if you need more pepper. And I know that sounds insane, especially if you're not a pepper person like me, okay? But it's one of those things that, you know, if you don't have all the pepper in the stroganoff, it just tastes weird. It just doesn't taste like stroganoff. So you have to have the pepper, even though everything in you says no. Put the pepper in. So taste it here. See if you're good to go. If you are, then you're pretty much, well, you're pretty much done. You've got dinner on the table. All right, let's just try, let's just try a little bit. Look how easy it is to grab the pasta. Yeah, I'm not lying. Okay, let's see. It's just so freaking good. Very creamy. Got a great bite in there. Lots of ground beef. Lots of beef flavor. It's hearty. It's comfort food. It's perfect. It really honestly is. This is so freaking good. It's really important to taste your recipe before you serve it. I'm also going to add just a little pinch of salt to this because I feel like it needs something just to brighten it up just a tiny little bit. Okay, we did have, there's, you know, obviously salt in the broth, there's salt in the gravy. We did not add any extra salt. And when you go through my recipe, of course you're going to make this, right? When you go through the recipe, you'll see I don't add any salt in the actual written recipe. But for my taste, so that's what living with 4 dogs and trying to do YouTube videos looks like. Yeah, add a little more salt. Okay, I'm going to go see what their problem is. I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye. All right, so we've got a screaming hot pan. We've got some ground beef. We still have our coffee. We have coffee. What's the coffee for? Heather. The coffee's for Heather. Let's put that back there. Okay, so as you cook that, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.